After recovering my eyesight, I still couldn't find the light of truth. Perhaps you'll think the story I'm about to tell is utterly ridiculous, and you might even call me a madman. That's fine. It's okay. After gathering a variety of credible information from the nosy neighbor and the antagonists, I'll recount everything in full detail. Whether they were truthful or not, who knows? All right, let's begin. I returned home after cataract surgery, with my eyes bandaged for a short time. Yes, temporarily blind. I couldn't move around or go about my daily life as usual. Oh, right! I almost forgot the most important introduction. I'm Jack. My wife is Lily. She has a body as fiery as Kim Kardashian, a face reminiscent of King Kong, and the personality of Mr. Bean. Wonderful. At times, she's so thoughtful. Instead of taking care of me herself while I'm injured, she hired a personal caregiver for me. This caregiver would look after me every day, just like a wife. Unfortunately, during that time, I couldn't see Annie, the incredible caregiver. The first time I met Annie, I was struck by her soft, warm voice, sweet as honey, completely opposite to the shouting I was used to from my wife. Annie spoke in a gentle, delicate tone, like a youthful maiden in the bloom of spring. Even without seeing her, I could imagine her slender, curvaceous figure. Her face must surely be beautiful and full of grace. Every morning, I would hear the sound of gym workout music. It was as if some unseen force guided me. I sprang up and made my way to the living room without anyone's help or guidance.
I found myself loving my wife and loving Annie too. Suddenly, there was a rapid knocking at the door. Furious, I called out, "Annie, could you please get the door for me?" No response. Instead, I heard hurried footsteps. Ah, she's probably feeling shy, embarrassed by her sexy outfit. A modest and refined woman. Very well, I admire her spirit. I'll find my cane and open the door myself. As soon as I opened the door, a barrage of scolding hit me right in the face. I've been yelling my throat dry. Why are you only opening now? So refreshing. Do the apartments here have indoor sprinklers, or what? Of course, it was none other than Mrs. May, my nosy neighbor. May wasn't exactly old, but she deserved the title of an old gossip monger. She was like a relentless camera, capturing everything regardless of terrain, environment, weather, or moral boundaries. As I shut the door behind her, I couldn't help but think, what's she up to this time? Maybe she's taking advantage of my blindness to snatch something. Next time, I'll just pretend to be asleep and ignore her. Mrs. May and I sat on the sofa. She made herself at home, turning on the TV and helping herself to my snacks. She asked if I was bored staying at home all day. I thought to myself, how could I possibly be bored with her constant interruptions? So I replied, "It's impossible to be bored when you come over to eat my snacks and leave your trash everywhere for me to clean." She went quiet for a moment, then asked, "I heard Lily hired you a caregiver. Where is she?" Ah, of course. There's no secret that can escape her. I called out for Annie, but there was no reply. I called a few more times, and then I heard the sound of a door opening. Annie gracefully walked over and responded softly, "I'm here." I just went to change after my workout. I introduced her to Mrs. May, saying she was my most cherished neighbor in the entire world. Annie greeted her politely, but I didn't hear Mrs. May respond. She was probably pursing her lips in disdain, wasn't she? There's never been a woman who could satisfy her judgment. She despised women, especially those prettier than her. But then again, was there anyone less attractive than May? She hated the whole world. Annie excused herself to go grocery shopping, and I gave her permission. She quickly left the house. Once Annie was gone, Mrs. May scooted closer to me and said there was something odd about Annie, that she didn't seem like a real woman. I smirked and replied, "Yes, she's different from other women here. She's a beautiful woman." Mrs. May seemed offended and soon left, taking something with her. I wasn't sure what, probably some food. But I swore to myself that I would never open the door for her again. I turned on a movie while waiting for Annie to return. Just listening to it was enough. Suddenly, a character in the film said, "You can never truly know who the person beside you is. The human heart is an unfathomable abyss." Instantly, my thoughts wandered to Annie. I was genuinely curious. I wanted to know what she looked like right this moment. A while later, Annie returned home. I caught a delightful aroma wafting from the kitchen. Annie must be cooking. That scent, the gentle demeanor, it was something Lily had never been able to offer. I felt my heart flutter. It was a pure, untainted love, even though I had yet to see Annie's face. Annie brought me the food, a feast straight from heaven. It tasted as exquisite as dishes from a fine restaurant. After the meal, Annie gently helped me to bed. I made an effort to touch her arm, only to feel a firm, muscular contour. A wave of sorrow welled up within me. What hardships must she have endured for her hands to become so calloused and rough? Once my sight returns, I promise to make it up to Annie. The next day, somehow, Mrs. May managed to visit my house again. As it turned out, she had taken my spare key yesterday under the pretense of protecting me from being assassinated by the caregiver. I quickly invited her to leave, but she was already snooping around, clearly on the hunt for Annie. As Mrs. May wandered off, I could only sigh in resignation. Her footsteps seemed to be heading toward the bathroom.
Oh no!
What could she be up to now? Suddenly, I heard the sound of her phone camera clicking, followed by a disappointed sigh. The bathroom door opened, and Annie stepped out, politely greeting her. Mrs. May said sharply, "Annie, there's something off about you. Why were you standing like that?" Annie just smiled and replied that she had been on the phone. She wasn't pleased with Mrs. May invading her privacy, and it was evident that Annie was upset. I reassured Annie, saying, "Please escort Mrs. May out properly." Before leaving, Mrs. May leaned in close and whispered to me, "Be careful, and call me if anything happens." After Mrs. May left, Annie sat down next to me, visibly frustrated and in tears. She confided in me how humiliated she felt being watched like that. I felt deeply sorry for what had happened. Knowing Mrs. May's nosy nature, I promised that such a thing would never happen again. I scooted closer to Annie, reaching out to comfort her. My hand accidentally brushed against her back, a firm, muscular back. I thought to myself that she must have spent too much time standing in the kitchen cooking. I could feel her muscles rippling, strong and defined like the engine of a machine. She turned to face me, and in doing so, my hand unintentionally grazed her chest. My heart raced. It was exactly what you'd expect from someone with a fiery figure. Slowly, I was piecing together an image of the woman I was falling for. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help it. I had never needed a wife who buried herself in work, neglecting her husband at home. My heart was swayed by women
The next day, I mentioned wanting to go for a walk. Annie got everything ready and brought me down to the lobby of the apartment building. It had been so long since I last felt the fresh air of nature. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath and savored the atmosphere. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a man coughing violently nearby. I called out to Annie asking, "Is there someone right next to us?" After a brief pause, she replied that it was a man who had just passed by. Annie explained that she hadn't answered right away because she didn't feel well and had stepped aside, worried about catching the flu. After saying that, Annie helped me sit down on a stone bench, mentioning she needed to buy some supplements. While I was sitting there enjoying the fresh air, Mrs. May appeared. Taking advantage of Annie's absence, she said she had seen Annie standing to urinate. I burst out laughing and told her she was delusional. To protect Annie and salvage some of my own false pride, I smirked and replied, "Annie is a real woman. I've even been with her." Mrs. May was momentarily speechless, but remained unconvinced. Just then, Annie returned and greeted Mrs. May as usual. Suddenly, Mrs. May yelled, "Aha! Here it is!" A crowd of neighbors from the apartment complex began to gather. Mrs. May pulled out several bottles from Amy's bag. "These are all men's medications, including pills for erectile dysfunction," she exclaimed. A murmur spread among the crowd. They speculated that Annie must have been buying the medicine on my behalf. I was on the verge of panic when Annie calmly spoke up, stating that it was Mrs. May's husband who had asked her to purchase the medicine, as he saw her as a mere helper. Raising her voice for everyone to hear, Annie declared, "Your husband has erectile dysfunction, Mrs. May." Flustered and humiliated, Mrs. May stormed off, leaving the crowd chuckling behind her. Annie and I laughed heartily, thoroughly enjoying the moment. Then Annie confessed to me that she had actually bought the medication for her sister-in-law's husband. She added with a sly smile that she intentionally embarrassed Mrs. May because she couldn't stand her.
A few moments later.
After that, Annie took me to the eye clinic. The doctor said my eyes might recover sooner than expected. I decided to keep this a secret to surprise Lily, and also to have Annie stay a little longer. I realized that once my vision returned to normal, Annie would likely lose her job. Life with Annie continued to be joyful, and I found myself becoming more and more infatuated with her. In just 1 week, my wife would return from her business trip, and Annie would have to leave. I decided I would confess my feelings to her and give her a farewell gift as a keepsake. Yes, I was deeply enamored with Annie, but as a married man, I refused to allow myself to betray my wife. That day, I quietly booked a taxi to the hospital and had my eyes fully checked. Everything was normal again. I stopped by a flower shop and picked out the most beautiful bouquet, along with a designer handbag as a gift for Annie. Tomorrow, she would leave, and Lily and I would return to our usual life. I hoped that Annie would find happiness and never forget me. As planned, I returned home. Annie wasn't in her room, so I decided to sneak in and decorate it while placing the gifts. To my surprise, the room was quite simple, with no dressing table. Just as I was putting the flowers on the table, the door opened, and Annie walked in. Panicking, I grabbed the bouquet and gift bag, hiding under the bed. Annie stepped inside, and I caught a glimpse of her legs. Well, they were sturdy, to say the least. Maybe Annie has a bold personality. People often say those who don't shave their legs are upright and honest, I thought. My eyes slowly moved upward. She was wearing a dress with an apron over it, her long black hair slightly curled. So gentle and feminine. Oh no, Annie was taking off her clothes. What should I do now? My heart pounded, and I could hardly breathe. Suddenly, my wife Lily entered the room. I couldn't let myself be caught, so I quickly put on my dark glasses, ready to pretend I was still blind. After all, tomorrow was supposed to be the day I went back to the hospital. Then Annie raised her hand to her head and ripped off her wig, tossing it to the ground. I was so shocked that I instinctively stood up, hitting my head on the underside of the table. I was discovered. They turned to look at me, and I froze as I saw Annie's face, more masculine than mine. The impact startled him so much that 2 oranges fell out from his chest. Lily looked stunned and frightened. I threw my dark glasses to the ground, finally understanding their plan. We all went outside to have a proper conversation. I asked Annie if he was Lily's lover. Annie replied that he wasn't. His real name was John, and he already had a girlfriend. He explained that Lily had hired him to take care of me because he was meticulous and reliable. Lily hugged me, confessing she was afraid that if she hired a female caregiver, I might fall for her. So she chose John to test my loyalty. I found her reasoning plausible and hugged her back, but I made her swear that John wasn't her lover. Lily swore without hesitation, and I let out a sigh of relief. I then told John to leave immediately. As a farewell, I handed him the bouquet and the designer handbag. Shaking John's hand, I thanked him for being so thoughtful and told him to give the flowers and the bag to his girlfriend. John looked at the bag with joy, saying it was a dream gift for any woman. He then said he had one last secret to share with me. John turned to Lily and peeled off her mask, revealing that she was fake as well. He said, "Your real wife has been abroad for a long time and married another man. She hired us to deceive you. Best wishes to you." John took Lily's hand, calling her Mia, his girlfriend. Smiling happily, they walked out of my house with the handbag and bouquet in hand. I stood there, dumbfounded, realizing that my problem was never my eyesight. It was my brain. The whole world had blatantly deceived me. From today onward, I vowed to take back everything.